Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me for morning coffee out in my backyard. So, ever since I was a kid, I found that things look primitive to me. It's a strange thing for a kid to think that, I suppose. But it struck me in particular when I look at trains. Trains just look like something out of the Dark Ages. They look so primitive. And it's made me think that, okay, disclosure here. I totally believe in past lives. And sometimes I survey other people, and a lot of people believe in past lives, reincarnation. I would say the people I speak to, it's like 90%. Even a lot of like people who are Christians, they're Christians, but they they are prepared to entertain the possibility that reincarnation is real. So I grew up without any religion in our household and no discussion about reincarnation, that's for sure. I was in a culture where it wasn't discussed. The closest thing to spirituality that was ever mentioned was when we were 11, they gave us a little New Testament. That was something they don't do anymore. A public school handing out Christian Bibles. Interesting. But yeah, maybe if reincarnation is real, we don't all come from lives on this planet. Okay, yes, I know that's a stretch, isn't it? Couldn't how bizarre. But it was the closest thing that I could come to explain why things look primitive to me. Like, did I come from a place where maybe the technology was a little more advanced, or somehow remember a life where we weren't getting around in trains and automobiles? Well, the interesting thing is, okay, look, we got the personal computer. Whoop de doo. Um, no, I mean it was a major breakthrough. It's the major breakthrough of the past forever. you know. Now, if you look at the history of the development of the personal computer, the development of the solid state circuitry is a huge leap. Apparently, I'm not a technical expert by any means, but it is a quantum leap over the previous generation, using vacuum tubes. So there was a book called The Day After Roswell by Colonel Corso. And this is a legitimate colonel in the United States Army who worked under General Trudeau, not our idiot Trudeau, General Trudeau in the US, a general. And he says it was all back engineered from extraterrestrial craft. He wrote this book shortly before he died, and he was given permission to release it. He was in a compartmentalized part of the U.S. Army, I believe it was, and his job was to farm out parts of extraterrestrial technology from crash sites, including Roswell in 1947, and they were handing it out to like Boeing and General Dynamics and General Electric, and the big major manufacturing companies in the United States, and some of their military, you know, um, the sides that worked with military stuff. And the deal was you find out what can be done with this, use your engineers, and see what this is all about and what you can develop from it. And the military will have first dibs on it, but you have full rights to everything else. You can, you will have the patents. So he claims that solid state circuitry came from crashed UFO back engineering of extraterrestrial technology, as well as night vision, Kevlar. I forget. There was about 5 significant technologies that he mentioned, 5 or 6 that came through that means, according to him. But the point is, doesn't that kind of make sense? You think of right here on our planet, the times where there's been an encounter. I mean, we've had civilizations that are in completely different stages on this planet. And when there's an encounter by the civilization with the one level and that with the lower level, there's a passing of technology. It always happens. So that doesn't seem so strange to me at all. At all, at all. I mean, anyone that's got their eyes open knows that there is definitely contact going on with extraterrestrial civilizations. I mean, unless you've got your head buried in the sand like a lot of people. It's just there. It's like my buddy says. It's like, he's in his early 70s, I think. I think he's 74. He's like, very intelligent guy, extremely intelligent. He goes, the one thing I can say is the whole phenomenon does not seem to be going away. As a matter of fact, it seems to be accelerating. So I have the feeling that in our generation, my generation, we're going to become aware that there's going to be a paradigm shift. And we are going to have some kind of contact where it will essentially be undeniable. It'll just be one of those things like, oh, you're a lunatic for believing in little green men, to all of a sudden it'll be like, yeah, tell me something new, like big deal. Oh yeah, they're here. Yeah, we all knew it. They're here, without doubt. When you read Colonel Corso's book, it's indisputable. Oh yeah, sure, there's been the debunkers. Colonel Corso, did he even exist? The debunkers. Who are the debunkers? Are they the people that, determine our reality based on their narrative? Give me a break. Who made them the authorities? Follow the science. Give me a break. Anyways, so back to the whole reincarnation thing. Maybe some of us have come from civilizations that had more advanced technology than we have here. And we look at things here and it looks kind of primitive. I'll bet you there's many people like that. As a matter of fact, I do have that sense that there are a lot of souls here on this planet today that are here with a mission. Moi included. And probably you, if you're listening to this. And figuring out what that mission is always a challenge. Some people are more aware of it than others. I just try to simplify it, that the foundational connecting principle, God, if you wish, is the core consciousness that makes this all work and connects it all. It is very humbling to be able to recognize that there is a connecting principle that gets the bees back to the beehive, that makes our bodies function, the miracles of physiology. I remember taking a nutrition course in university and finding out what the liver does. That was like completely overwhelming. It's like, how can I remember all this? It's like this slab of beef within us does all this. It's unbelievable. And so it doesn't take a genius to see the fact that we are here is a miracle. The fact that anything exists is the miracle. How can you not believe in a greater connecting principle? So, my whole point that I wanted to get to was that despite this influx of technological advancement, things like the computer chip, and now AI, we're like the Flintstones. We're in bedrock. We are deep in bedrock. And it's been so stagnant. But now we're seeing countries like China. They're starting to run with it. And we're going to have the chance to see what we're going to get a chance to see what it looks like when you apply those technologies and you give it out to the people and you make your society more functional and you redo your infrastructure based on that modern technology. How many high-speed trains do they have in China now? And how many do we have? We have none. I think there's one that's being built in California or something. I don't even think it's functional yet. So what happened? This was sort of my idea for the topic here, was what happened to Canada? 1967, it was the place to be. There was a recognition of a vitality here in this country that was exciting, and it had the world by the kahunas. It was the place to be. And somehow the ball has been completely dropped in this country. Like we are the B team now. I think this country is barely first world. Barely. Like it's just holding on by its fingernails on the edge of the cliff. It's falling. And the question is, where are we going? Is it going to get worse, or are we going to get things sorted out? And I like to listen to this guy, Matthew Ehret, Ehret, out of Montreal. Very bright, intellectual historian, a younger guy. And he talks about geopolitics. He talks about I think he calls it the fifth column rather than the deep state. Maybe that's so he doesn't get labeled a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. But when you're living under the Anglo-American Empire, this is what you get. This is as good as it gets. And now we're seeing the emergence of China, and we're seeing a different model. And yeah, we've been taught they're the evil. They're the evil ones. Russia, the center of all evil. And Ehret shares a history that, Russia was actually friends with the U.S. And there was designs to create a rail system, a system of transport that went up through the Bering Strait and attached the U.S. to Asia. And those presidents that supported that Well, it was at that time, it was really Abraham Lincoln. They were assassinated. We can't have, we're not going to have these guys as our friends. We need an enemy. Did you ever see Canadian Bacon? Michael Moore's film? Yeah, they always need an enemy. So, so somehow we've been held back. You know, it looked like I've always followed Canadian companies, and it's like there's a joke like how do you create a small Canadian business? Well, you start up you just have a large Canadian business and wait. It's like look at the transition we've seen. Like there's almost no real Canadian based businesses left that are to speak of. So we've been relegated to a real B team colony. And for a while, it was looking good for the middle class here. I don't think it's looking so good these days. And, Canadians have to figure out what do they want? Are we going to open our eyes up and start to see things for how they are? Or are we just going to have a lot of wishful thinking and watch everything slide away and hand this country over to our kids and our grandchildren and they'll just leave? My daughter's in Germany. My son's down in Los Angeles. I've got a neighbor next door. He's Canadian but grew up in the US. He had a business here. He's like out of here. He's like, no. So he's going back to the US. And I've seen immigrants come here and the struggle they've been put through. But they're tough people. They hang in and they make it work. They're going to be the people who will probably, if any change is going to happen in this country, any significant change towards a positive outcome, I guess they'll be the ones that make it. So, we got all the potential in the world here. But when you think about it, 35 million people in the second largest country in the world, we're not in control. The US Fed controls our entire economy, basically. That's the central banking system. They dictate, they determine if Canada's going to succeed or fail or fall on its face or incrementally, it's 1.3% growth a year, however they measure it. So, what's the solution? Where do we want to go? It reminds me a little bit, China's emergence reminds me a little bit of Japan when they went from manufacturing these little trinkety, junky things, and it almost had a reputation like, oh, it's made in Japan, junk. Well, it wasn't long before it wasn't junk. And where that really started to emerge was the car companies and the emergence of the Japanese automobile, which just kicked ass. It was so much better than the American junk. My friend and I used to joke that we were all traumatized by the experience of our parents having crappy American cars. I remember my dad had an X car. What the heck was it? Whatever it was, what a piece of junk. And we all heard our parents, or some of us heard our parents cursing about the car, that that car needed a new transmission within like 2 weeks. Nothing fit properly. It was absolute garbage. And so the Japanese cars, they were like good little cars. They were outdoing the Americans. And to this day, let's face it, you got a car made in Japan, it's better than anything made in the States. So I think in the same sense, where was I going with that? The Japanese, the emergence of anyways, I think we're going to see China, and we're going to be watching the development of that, and it's going to start to look like a different civilization. It's going to look like the Jetsons versus the Flintstones. And we've been a little bit arrogant, I would say, thinking we've got the greatest education system, the greatest universities, the greatest this, the greatest, like Canada is the best country in the world. I went to Mexico and used their bus system. It's like better than anything we've got here. Our buses are terrible. I'm in Lindsay here. It's hard to get. There's really no transportation system to get you into Toronto. No train. Some bus run by some, second-rate company, but bless their soul, at least we got something. And, like, you can't even get back, and you need a car. That's it. Car, nothing. We've gone backwards. Like 100 years ago, Peterborough was called the Electric City. There was like streetcars everywhere. And my son went to a school there. Both my kids went to a school there, PCVS. It was the second oldest high school in Canada. It was gorgeous. Marble staircases, auditorium that was gorgeous. And just to see that, it's like, whoa. Beautiful wooden floors, gleaming wooden floors. I was like, that was 100 years ago. Look what we got today. These boxy, horrible, soul-destroying, dehumanizing schools. And they're getting them out of those cute little nice schools, and they're putting them into those shitbox schools, great big places where they can be processed. You wonder why we got conformity. Because they're trained in it, They're not trained to have critical thinking. So, I wonder if people can start dreaming of something better. Can we start to imagine that, yes, we've got the richest country in the world. We got everything here. We got fresh water. We got, we have the minerals. We do have an educated population here. We have people that have experienced some freedom, so it's in their DNA to a certain extent. And we have to break away from this empire that we're a part of. Sometimes I think the fact that China and Russia are emerging and the BRICS nations are emerging as an alternative might be the best thing that ever happened to Canada. Are we do we need to be so locked in to this one system? Or can we free ourselves? Or are we just, a colony that, really when you look at Canada's history, we've never really broken away. We've sort of gone from the British, conventional history. We've sort of gone from the British Empire to the American Empire. There's a question as to whether that's the same empire. It's been in place, ever since the City of London was developed and has been controlling the financial system, the central governments of the world. So, that's my morning discussion with you. Maybe just something to think about. Is it so far out to think that we had some influx of extraterrestrial technology that maybe within our generation that might not be such a shock, and that there's an opportunity to advance if we can break away from the controlling influences and stop acting like sheep? Have a great day.